Hello everybody, and thanks for subscribing to my YouTube channel, and please press subscribe if you haven't already and you'll get notified when videos appear. Today I want to speak about the Mercosur deal. This is hugely important and has hugely important significance for us here domestically in Ireland and across Europe. It is very important that the media haven't talked in the main part about the real implications of this deal for ordinary people. So I want to talk you through this over the next number of minutes. First of all, this deal has been in train for well over 20 years. The Mercosur group is made up of 5 countries in South America, such as Brazil, Bolivia, Uruguay, Paraguay and Argentina. Now this has been a big trading bloc aimed by the European Union for their free market and free trade agreements that they've been most notable for many years. And it's always remarked upon that these free trade agreements are always win-win for everybody. And that was the language coming from a lot of the MEPs in the last number of days who've been saying this is a fantastic win-win for Ireland. But behind the scenes there are huge issues happening, and a lot of people have serious concerns with these so-called trade deals. Now this is very important because currently we've seen von der Leyen acting essentially as a dictator in the European Union, working at the behest with European commissioners as of big corporate lobbyists. And this is part of the bigger neoliberal agenda, where they look at moving towards big corporations rather than looking after the interests of small businesses, and in this instance small farmers. Now this is very important because this is going to be a historic trade deal that is essentially going to be signed off on by von der Leyen today. Now it has to go through a process of coming before the European Council, and then it will finally get ratified by the members of the European Parliament, probably within the next 9 to 12 months. Now, what von der Leyen aims to achieve with this, and the issues this is going to create, are far-reaching. Now, what's going to happen in Brazil, we've already heard these stories, horror stories of deforestation of the Amazon rainforest being used by big ranchers to industrialise so much of that land. Also, huge issues for indigenous peoples in that area being forced off their lands and dislocated because of the lure of big profits by these big ranchers. And also, as I said, move towards larger scale, industrial scale farming with big ranchers and big corporations at the back of it, private equity firms and hedge funds at the back of that also as well, to profit from these trade agreements. And of course there's going to be issues about the traceability that a lot of Irish farmers have concerns with, reducing checks and issues around hormones and pesticides being used in the agricultural produce. Now again, this is going to benefit the large agri-food oligarchs, the private equity companies, the hedge funds, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the State Streets, I'm sure are heavily invested in this. And also it's going to impact the millions of small farmers. Now there's so many small farmers in Ireland that have been decimated for years and years, and now what's happening is this is going to have huge ramifications for flooding the European market with cheaper beef, and essentially they talk about the environmental factors and sustainability, and this is absolute just flies in the face of their environmental practices and their so-called claims of sustainability. But of course it's all about the lures of massive profits, because those in Brussels, all they look at is productivity, efficiency, output, yield per unit, and the costs at the benefit of the big corporation and big corporate farmers. But what they won't tell you about this as well is the opposite impact of this trade agreement in terms of the big car manufacturers. Now since the inception of the increase in terms of the war in Ukraine over the last number of years, we've seen the implications in Europe in terms of the industrialisation of Europe. And this has had huge ramifications for the German car industry. Volkswagen is facing huge strife at the moment with deindustrialisation, higher energy costs and reduced car production because of the drive towards this net zero plan also as well. And this has caused huge staff issues, job losses, and walkouts and strikes are planned in Germany as I'm speaking, and it has led to huge political chaos as Germany faces an election in February of next year. So there's huge chaos taking place in Europe at the behest of pushing this war in Ukraine rather than looking for peace. And of course, there was a huge energy provider, was the Nord Stream, for cheap Russian energy. And of course now a lot of this energy is being brought from the USA across through LNG, and other tariffs and sanctions are being put on the Russian Federation because of higher costs across Europe, and everybody's feeling the implications of that. Here, of course, in Ireland, with higher energy costs, we see the huge amount of profiteering taking place. But of course, the implications of the war are never brought into a facet of how this has transpired. And of course, this is a proxy war that we all fully aware of. And the agenda within this is the balkanisation of the Russian Federation. And this has been made clear by many, many analysts. And there are reports through the European Union and the European Parliament to this fact over the last few years, to what their agenda is, to try and get somebody who's actually acceptable to them, those on the free market side, so they can liberalise those markets, deregulate those markets, and push the neoliberal agenda through more countries also as well. But of course, all these leaders of countries always serve their oligarchs, whatever side they're on, rather than the interests of the ordinary people. And of course, it's the implications of the energy vehicles, or the electric vehicles, and the Chinese competition has come into play with this as well. And also we see the issues with France. France is in chaos at the moment also. We see Barnier in the last number of days resigning as Prime Minister, Macron under serious pressure, being ostracised by all sides of the political spectrum in France. Huge uproar. And of course there's been huge pressure coming from farmers all around Europe, with huge issues for years and years because of the move towards the industrialisation of our food supply. And the multinationals are controlling it. And this is huge issues for our food security. And this is the time when they're talking about having our energy security and having our security of our nations at the heart of what their policies are based on, when they're flying in the face of this when it comes to food security. So this is what the neoliberal project has gone so far across Europe and impacting us here in Ireland. And this will have huge ramifications going forward, because they're wedded to this relentless drive towards supporting the big corporations at the expense of small businesses and small farmers domestically here in Ireland. Now, we'll see how this develops. My reckoning is there's going to be huge uproar over this, a lot of protests, and we'll see what develops over this again. But this demonstrates what the European project really is all about. It's not about looking after the needs of the citizens and ordinary people, small businesses, small farmers. It's about serving the interests of the private equity firms, the big corporations, the big lobbyists who control the policy through Europe, and the lack of control we have in national parliaments. Domestically, we have next to no power around these issues, because there is a veto that could be arranged, for instance, if there's enough of a bloc who are behind this. For instance, we have Micheál Martin and Simon Harris over the last number of days have been swanning around the place trying to pretend how they're going to sort out the next government. What they should be getting down to is working with other like-minded people in different countries across Europe to say how we can stop this deal from progressing and put the needs of small farmers first. But of course they're not going to do that, because they're interested in serving their masters in Brussels rather than serving the people here in Ireland. So it needs people to wake up to what's going on. Even this Mercosur deal will have massive ramifications on a huge number of levels, internationally and domestically here in Ireland. So when people are going to be listening to what's going on, they're not going to listen to really how it's going to impact people in terms of these global free trade deals that'll always benefit the very rich at our expense. So we need to be aware of this, speak out on it, share my videos, and spread more awareness to what's going on about this Mercosur deal, and get the reality to what's going on in terms of bigger wars and all these agendas. It's all about driving the profits of the very rich at the expense of ordinary people who always suffer and die because of their policies, and will lose businesses also as well. And so much of our domestic industry has been generated from small farmers for years and years and years, and it's vitally important that this continues. So thanks for the support, and I really appreciate all the shares of my videos. Thank you.